Good evening, and welcome to the 2021 Town Hall, where your questions will be answered by the upcoming school board candidates. My name is Sean Bruce, and I am a junior at Liberty High School.
And my name is Lizzie Kaiser, and I am a senior at Liberty High School. Sean and I will be moderating tonight's Town Hall. This evening's questions were based upon the answers of a survey given to students across the district. The most popular topics from the survey, as well as the candidates' campaign platforms, were considered in the creation of tonight's questions.
First, all candidates will be asked 3 general questions and will answer round-robin style. After, each candidate will answer a question specific to them and their platform. Following this round, there will be a 10-minute long break before we move on to viewer questions.
Throughout the event, you can submit questions of your own through the link at the bottom of your screen. That is tinyurl.com/viewerquestions2021. Please keep all questions appropriate and relevant and signify the candidate your question is directed to. Event organizers will be selecting questions from this survey during the break to be given to candidates in a third round. Again, that is tinyurl.com/viewerquestions2021, which you can find at the bottom of your screen.
We will now introduce our 2021 school board candidates. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Each candidate has 30 seconds to introduce themselves before the questions begin. We will start with Ms. Coleman-Hale.
Hello, my name is LaShawn Coleman-Hale, and I am running for school board to implement and ensure competitive competition for our essential employees in hiring of well-qualified educators and support staff, including those individuals with diversified educational skills and cultural backgrounds. Wanting an adaptive plan to equip and support our students and families who face multiple barriers to education and open lines of communications for all students, stakeholders addressing and resolving concerns and ensuring those concerns not be ignored.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Coleman-Hale. Mr. Buchanan, you may begin.
Hello, my name is Brad Buchanan. I've served on the school board since 2018. I'm running again this year. I was concerned about the makeup of the board itself. I want to make sure that we have board members that understand the role of governance when it comes to governing the district internally, but also support the district from the external as well. And I want that support to include all students, staff, teachers, administration, cabinet, and the superintendent as well. We have to support everybody as a whole if we want this to be the best district that it can be.
All right, thank you, Director Buchanan. Ms. Thurman, you may begin.
Hello, I'm Sherry Thurman, and I'm running for the school board because I want to continue serving the students, staff, and families of the district from a different chair and a different perspective. I want to be an educator's voice on the school board. I do believe an educator should be a member of the school board. I want to bring a positive influence, bringing hope and confidence back to the board, and assuring that we will have student-focused conversations. I do want to increase our focus on mental health and the mental health needs of our students and our staff. In order to do that, I want to look at our finances so that we can increase the support for our students and our staff and increase their capacity to support our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thurman. Mr. Goodson, you may begin.
Yeah, my name is Jason Goodson. I've lived here in Winsfield for the last 10 years. I've got twin girls in 6th grade over at Wabash. I'm a product of the Zumwalt district where I met my wife, my high school sweetheart. I'm a CPA. I've been in finance roles my whole career, starting out at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I'm currently the chief of staff to the CEO at Mallinckrodt, working on various strategic priorities with our executive leaders and our board of directors. I hope to bring my career experiences to the board as we move through these current financial constraints, the impacts that it's had to our teachers and our staff. I want to ensure as we continue to grow, grow in the community, that we're making decisions today that consider the future. Our students should be put first in everything we do, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my family and those kids in the district. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goodson. Ms. Stoll, you may begin.
Hi, my name is Shannon Stoley. My husband and I have lived in the Wentzville School District for 15 years. We have twins who attend Heritage Primary. They're in the 1st grade, and we have a boy and a girl. I'm a mom and I'm a wife, and my professional background is I have 20 years of broadcast news experience. I hope to bring my ability and skills of asking tough questions, the ability to organize voices in the community, and just basically bring that collaborative effort to the school board. And I hope that I can do that and make the best decisions for kids.
Thank you, Ms. Doley. Mrs. Sloan, you may begin.
Hi everyone, I'm Corey Sloan. I ran in last year's election and just narrowly missed the win. I'm a mother of 4. We moved here in June of 17. We moved here for the district. I see the awesomeness of our teachers and our students in the district, and I want to push forward in helping to make those positive changes for them, working towards collaboration, support, inclusivity, and accountability.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sloan. Mr. Looney, you may begin.
Thank you. My name is Donald Looney. I've lived in Wentzville since '98. All of my children have gone through the Wentzville School District. I decided to run for the Board of Education because I believe in public education, and I think it's one of the key center pieces to achieving the type of diversity and equality that we're all looking for in these times. Thank you for having me, and I think that's it.
All right, thank you all. We will now begin the first round of questions. You will each have 90 seconds to answer during this round.
For the prepared questions, we will go in the same order as the introductions. We will call on you when it is your turn to speak. Here is your first question.
75% of the students who took our survey had questions relating to COVID-19. The pandemic presented a plethora of unique challenges never faced by the district before. What do you think we could have done differently regarding COVID policies? And how do you plan to integrate this knowledge into next school year?
We will start with Ms. Coleman-Hale. Your time begins now.
I can't really say what I would have done differently as of now, but from the information I've gathered from other students and parents, they would probably have liked to see more instruction through virtual learning because a lot of the students are struggling right now. The students I've spoken with believe that it's more of a cut and paste situation where they're not comprehending the information they need and they feel like they are behind. I'm not sure how I would have handled the COVID as far as classrooms, right, as far as class and attending. The blending sessions were actually helpful for some students because they had the opportunity to be out of the house and then at school and to continue their socialization. However, some students felt that it was inconvenient because they did not want to be exposed or exposing anyone to COVID, and bringing that back home to their families. So just a culmination of all of that, that would be the one thing that I found that was helpful was the blending, and then also following the protocol for social distancing so that the spread of the virus would be limited. That's all that I have.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Coleman-Hale. Director Buchanan, you may begin now.
Looking back, the one thing that I would like to have changed, or if I could go back and change anything, it would actually be the use of metrics when going through the tiered model. I made the motion at a meeting. I wasn't successful, but I still believe that I think that could have taken some of the uncertainty and some of the worry out of where we were going and where we were headed. Make it very straightforward for the entire community to know what to expect over the next few days based on those metrics. I think that would have helped the community understand where we were and how we could all work together to get all the kids back in school. I agree. I think the hybrid model. I like what the hybrid model provided. It kept kids in school as much as we could to give them that face-to-face learning time. But if I could change anything, it would be applying metrics to the front side of that to help make that decision.
All right, thank you, Director Buchanan. Ms. Thurman, you may begin now.
Thank you. As I see COVID, I see it as a dark cloud that descended on our world as we knew it. We had drills to prepare for many emergencies. However, we had nothing to prepare for this. We were receiving information quickly, and it was changing rapidly, and we had to have a plan, and we had to respond to our children's needs and their learning and continue their learning. Our staff and families had to pivot quickly into an unfamiliar and uncomfortable world of teaching and learning. All of our staff and all our departments had to pitch in and work together to provide what our families needed. However, This created a tremendous amount of stress and unrest. And change is stressful and creates a lot of tension. So the plans we had in place, the level system, how we were going to quarantine, et cetera, we needed to listen to the feedback, and modifications were made. We are here, and I think this is an absolute opportunity to learn and grow, to benefit from mistakes that may have been made. We can't get stuck. We have to move forward. And I think that we should create structures to listen to our students and respond to suggestions. I think we need to create alternative learning opportunities. And I think that we should maybe provide designated time during our open forums, during our board meetings, designate for students to be able to speak. I also think that the Student Advisory Council that Dr. Kane meets with should be continued and expanded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thurman. Mr. Goodson, you may begin.
Yeah, look, I think the words unprecedented are used quite often, but I think I think that's really important to understand. Looking in hindsight, obviously we have the benefit of that, and so it's easy to throw stones and say what we could have done or should have done. You know, I look at my experiences, my career, and think about, you know, when you're dealing with something that's really challenging and really hard to follow or could change in a moment's notice, I go back to communication, to transparency and decision making, and making sure everybody's on board and understand that as you go through this exercise. How we do that, how often we do that, you know, where we do that really matters. There was never a one-size-fits-all solution that was going to make everyone happy here, but how we decided to go through the steps, you know, where we communicated and how we communicated, and what we understood, what was working, what isn't working, and how we could pivot and go through that exercise was really important. Over-communication should have been the baseline understanding of what we went through. While it wasn't going to make everybody happy, I think people would have understood a little bit better of where we were coming from, why we were coming from, and where we were going to go. I think that, you know, as we now think forward, right, what lessons learned can we take from that, you know, as we apply to challenges facing the district going forward? And I'm hopeful we do that, and we take a, you know, a collection of what we've learned and apply it going forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goodson. Ms. Stoley, you may begin now.
Thank you. What I guess I would have liked to see a little more of is more clear communications on the expectations that, you know, students have, that the expectations of staff, and just more consistency with what we were doing within our school day. I think that, you know, just in my conversations with teachers, staff, and parents, that all those groups would have wanted a little more support, better support. What that means exactly, I think that was for us to, you know, just hammer it out and assess the situation as it continues to morph and be a fluid situation. With that said, it was an unprecedented event, and I'm so thankful to all of our certified staff, our teachers, our support staff, because every single one of them showed up every day and said, how do I best serve the student? And I'm forever grateful for that.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoley. Mrs. Sloan, you may begin.
I'm thankful, just as everybody else has been. I was incredibly thankful that we were given the options as parents to make those decisions that work best for our families. And I know every family had to make that hard decision on what worked for them, and I appreciate that for everybody. I would have liked to seen a little bit better timelines set to make those big decisions that we had to make. Also, I would have loved to seen some numbers set just so that we knew clearly when we were moving from one level to another if you did make that choice to be in person. I love that we had a hybrid option. I felt that was a proactive response that the district had, where other districts in our area didn't have that as an option. So I thought that was great, and I would love to see that going forward as an option for our students. I would also like to see more support for the teachers when they are doing those virtual options. We have been blessed with some incredible teachers across the district, but I know during the hybrid it was a lot of confusion and trying to balance. So I would love to see that. And maybe some more counseling work for those students that are in the hybrid situation. I know a lot of them were struggling. I would have loved to have seen some more work with that part on top of it. I don't think the decision this year was made lightly, given decisions made by the board, or the administration. I think everybody worked hard to try to make the best decision they could for all students, and I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sloan. Mr. Looney, you may begin.
Thank you. So my answer to this is pretty simple. I think that there are 3 essential things that any student needs to thrive in any educational environment, and that would be structure, consistency, and safety. And so I would have liked to see a plan in place that would have provided that for the students, regardless of what method or phase or part of that timeline we were in. I don't feel like consistency was really captured, so I would have tried to work a little harder on that part of it. And, you know, we could be here all night armchair quarterbacking and, you know, going back and saying what we would have done or what we could have done. But I think at this point in time, it's best to start moving forward and looking forward and trying to implement some solutions to make sure that if this happens again, that we are ready for it, because we are a solid school district and we can handle a situation like this. That's all I got for you.
All right, thank you.
Now for question 2. The Wentzville School District represents a diverse group of students, families, and staff, with countless individuals of different races, religions, sexualities, gender identities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. How do you plan to support the diverse communities within the district and ensure they are treated with equality when it comes to their education?
Ms. Coleman-Hale, your time begins now.
I did run last year for the board, and that was one of my priorities, was diversity. First of all, Wentzville has now become more diverse in every way. People from all over the United States are coming to Wentzville. There are people who are coming from out of the country to Wentzville because we are one of the top districts that are growing right now. So if we have a diversified of people coming here, then our school board needs to be diversified. If our school board is not diversified, and it's not necessarily black and white, it's diversity in skills, in education, in experiences, in life experiences, our children, our parents need to know that we are like-minded. We're not one-sided and live in a box, because we do have a diversified. We need to have an input from the community, which include our mayors as well, to see how we can function together as one and have a balance, because our students who attend the school are a part of our community. If we are teaching our children, we need to build some strength in school and outside of school so we all can mesh together as one. So we need to hear from our students, we need to hear from our parents to see how we can work cohesively together. But we need a diversified board that reflects our community.
Thank you, Mrs. Coleman-Hale. Director Buchanan, you may begin.
As we move forward and as the district continues to change, we can't just stick our heads in the sand and keep doing things the way we always have. We have to be willing to look at the way we're meeting students where they are. Part of that is also ensuring that in the classrooms, things like ESCs, like our support structures, are in place, and making sure that all the students' needs are met regardless of race or color or anything else. If we can have those in place and students feel comfortable, then that education environment will really open up. So I think that's what I think that the board can do. Part of that will be staffing, our curriculum, some of those issues that we have to be willing to look at those, adjust as needed as society and as our community changes, and we have to be willing to look at that and accept those.
Thank you, Director Buchanan. Ms. Thurman, you may begin.
Thank you. This is possibly an emotional issue. However, I think in today's climate, I think it is critical to our culture. So I thank the students for bringing this forward and bringing it out in the open. I think diversity is all-encompassing. It is about public education. Public education is about educating all students. I think it's difficult to have conversations because people are uncomfortable, and I think being uncomfortable comes from lack of understanding. There's just simple misunderstanding. I do believe that we need to treat people from diverse backgrounds with dignity and respect. I think this enriches our lives and it broadens our world. And by diverse backgrounds, I mean everything that has already been mentioned, so I don't need to mention those areas again. However, I want to say that I will make it a point to support the LGBTQ student-led organization in this district at secondary levels, and I will support any club which the students want to initiate that supports diversity and unity among our community. I want to encourage their voice. I know our students are also concerned that there are a few staff of diverse backgrounds. I think that sometimes this leads to stress and feeling alone and maybe disconnected. I think it's important that we do our very best to make this a place where people want to come, want to work, and be part of their life. And I think that without that, I think that they need faculty that look like them and understand their generational experiences. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Thurman. Mr. Goodson, you may begin.
Look, I look at diversity and inclusion and I say it's a culture. Like, how do you want to be and how do we want those that are diverse to see us? And I think that comes from walking the walk and talking the talk. That comes from the board of directors on how they experience things and how they empathize with the diverse groups that we have, to the administration, to the teachers, to the staff. And we have to think about, showing that we are inclusive, that we are supportive of diversity, really allow, our students to see, to let us see who they are, right? And I think that that's going to require things, right? It's going to require us to understand circumstances, their backgrounds, why, they feel a certain way. So give them a voice, right? Give them a place that they can feel like you're hearing them at all times, no matter what. Allow us to break down walls, break down stigmatisms that exist throughout, and be that destination district for diversity, for inclusion. It starts at the top. It's a culture that we as a board can drive. And I think it's important. You want to be inclusive, you want to be understanding, and it starts from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Goodson. Mrs. Stoll, you may begin.
Thank you. I plan to support diversity by making sure all students feel like they belong in their school community. And I plan to support programs that will do just that. I think tonight is a perfect example of that again, is that we need to have these conversations. This is a good starting point. Having this dialogue right here is the first beginning steps of breaking down barriers for things that maybe some members of our community are not comfortable with. Wentzville School District is a leader in so many great things, and I think that we can also lead the way in diversity by example.
Thank you, Ms. Stolle. Ms. Sloan, you may begin.
Sure. So school is our children's home away from home, essentially, whether that's your safe place from getting away from home or if that's a place that you find controversy at the same time. We need to work towards acceptance. Our kids need to feel accepted here at school by our teachers, by their peers, by their counselors. So working towards celebrating their differences and supporting them and hearing from them, hearing from those students. You are the ones that are walking through our halls. We should hear from you. You see things in a different way than what we as parents or teachers see. Our counselors need to have some time more to be able to support you instead of having to fill out all the paperwork sometimes. Giving you the adequate time to just have a voice, to just have somebody that you can go talk to that you may not have at home. Working towards a community through projects and services together that grow our community and celebrate the diversity and the different races and our different ethnicities and our different socio backgrounds. Working together is our biggest deal.
Thank you, Mrs. Sloan. Mr. Looney, you may begin.
Thank you. So I guess I'll start by saying to really address the diversity in our community, it really begins with representation. Representation does matter, and when people can identify with those that they work with those who teach them, those who educate them. From the lady standing out front waving the men off of the bus to, the gentleman who may be serving meals in the cafeteria. I think that we have to create an atmosphere that promotes acceptance, that promotes inclusion, and I think that we have to embrace addressing those differences, and not in a way that's offensive to anyone, but just acknowledging that they do exist and that they matter and that we care. Because if those things, if a person doesn't feel welcome in a place, it kind of causes us to retreat back to what's familiar. And if we all stand on different sides of the line and different sides of the fence, it's going to be hard to move forward together. So I think that we should try to find a way to bring everyone together, create an atmosphere of unification and inclusion, and then we can get to diversity.
Thank you. Here is your third and final question. Apart from COVID, what do you think is the largest issue facing our school district at this point in time? What specific actions would you take to work towards a solution if elected to the board?
Mrs. Coleman-Hale, your time begins now.
The biggest concern right now that I believe is decreasing the educational gap. And I fall back on that I don't want to put COVID back into it, but it is a part of it because there are students who feel that they are behind in their work. So our teachers have been literally overworked, working in combination of in-class and virtual learning. We need the support staff there to support the educators. We need the support staff to support the students, virtually and in school. If we can't do that, I feel our children are going to get behind more and more. I think a way that we can do that is to reach out also, as educators, we support one another, to reach out to other districts and see what their line of, what their ideas, what they have used, what has not helped. I think just going on and communicating with others around the district to get an input so we can teach all of our children together. It doesn't hurt to share with that information. Educators, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to share with one another and compound on that. And I think if we do that during these trying times, we can get our students back where they need to be. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman-Hale. Director Buchanan, you may begin.
I think this year it has proven that it's almost a list of what isn't an issue this year, I think is maybe the better question, it seems like. Our biggest issue is going to be prioritizing and how we get things done over the next couple of years. We've had some financial issues. We've had COVID issues. We have some external issues of some of the school choice initiatives. There's some really large issues that coming down the pipe. Some are internal, some are external. We're going to have to be very careful and make sure that all of our decisions as we move forward and we focus on things like inclusion and educational gaps and those kind of things, we have to make sure that the board does everything they can to make sure that those decisions are still focused on the students, on the educational environment. That should be our number one priority. So I think that's going to be our issue going forward, is making sure that whatever the issue we're dealing with, make sure that issue and that focus always comes back to students, and the best way to support all students across the district and keep education in Winsfield School District.
Thank you, Director Buchanan. Ms. Thurman, you may begin now.
Thank you. There are many things, of course, has already been said that we could focus on, but I want to focus on the absolute basic needs of our kids, which is their mental health needs. I believe that in order for our students to learn, we need to remove the barriers to learning, which is so much stress and anxiety, and the instability that some of the culture of today has caused. I think that we've done a good job in this district providing mental health services, but it is not enough. I know it's very difficult to talk about, but we cannot ignore the increased incidence of child abuse and suicide attempts and hospitalizations. We must address that in this district as well as our community. But I think that in order for kids to learn, we know that they need to feel safe, they need to have a sense of belonging, and they need to have relationships with a caring adult, a very supporting adult. And in order to be able to do that, there needs to be time, and our teachers need the capacity to spend with kids, to get to know our kids. And in order to do that, we need to look at our finances, we need to increase our mental health support, and and we need to provide support for our staff so that they have the capacity to be there for our children. Everything else will build on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thurman. Mr. Goodson, you may begin.
A couple of points. Like I do believe that kids should be put here first, right? And now every decision that we make, and I don't think it's any secret that in order to get the best education, we need to get the most out of it. What the situation is, our financial constraints and our issues are going to have an impact in any decision that we make. We've seen what that has done this year in terms of teacher pay, support staff pay, discretionary spends, extracurricular activities, etc. So as we think forward about the needs of our students and putting them first in our decisions, our financial constraints and how we manage out of that is the most important issue. It's a specifically set of actions that I believe is what do we want to be? What's our financial vision to achieve those priorities? We set those priorities, we set our financial strategies against those priorities, and we move forward. I get a lot of questions around, how do we cut costs to get to those outcomes, to get to those priorities? This isn't a financial strategy I'm talking about to cut costs to get something. It's more about the total picture of the financial statements, whether it's where we get our revenue source and how we can bring in more, how we can bring kids that have left the district back. Every child in our boundaries should be looked at and be put into our schools, and how do we bring those back? What's our marketing strategies to do that? How do we then provide the right financial outcomes that then drive results for our students, for the classrooms, for our teachers, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Goodson. Ms. Stoley, you may begin.
Thank you. I think that we just need to remember that the priority is all the students. And with that in mind, this last year, there have been learning deficits. I think we need to, we have the next year ahead is going to be challenging in trying to decide how to fill those gaps. I think we need to lean on our amazing teachers to try to figure out what are the best ways to fill those gaps. Mental health, as another candidate mentioned, that's very important. We need to try to get early interventions for students who are needing help in that area. And I just, I believe that the best place for kids is in school because they have those supports. They are in front of a trusted adult, whether that be in the classroom or doing it virtually, and those are the things that I think are the biggest issues in our school district.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoley. Mrs. Sloan, you may begin.
Sure. So my thought is more on community-wide along with the district. I think our biggest issue right now is the divide we have in the community. I think our all common goal for everyone here sitting on this stage and everybody in our community is our kids. And working towards the best options that we can give for them in all capacities. The district supports our kids in so many other ways besides just education, so that to me is huge. Trying to figure out how we can bridge those gaps and create those relationships across the community so that we can have better communication and less finger pointing and just working together to make a good, positive future for our kids. I think if we can work towards collaborating through different surveys conducted with the teachers, with the support staff, with the bus drivers, with the administration, with our parents, with our students. And we can kind of bring those together, especially present those kinds of surveys to the board. We'll see what the real concerns are and what was working and what is not working. You all are walking the walk, so you know best. So we need to trust in what you are telling us.
Thank you, Ms. Sloan. Mr. Looney, you may begin.
All right, thank you. So I guess to wrap it all up, I'm going to say our biggest opportunity for improvement in our district would be to find a common sense solution to some of the staffing issues that we have. I think when you look at the broad scope of just about everything every candidate has said here, we have to find someone to do that job. As board members, we sit on a board and we vote and we make decisions and we say, here it goes, right? And so we want to be able to support a plan and support a staff and an administration that can provide all those needs for our children. So I think we have to find like I said, a common sense solution to make sure that we can retain quality educators, that we can retain a good support staff, that we can have quality and trusted individuals driving those school buses. And so I think that staffing would be our greatest opportunity for improvement right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Viewers, before we begin our second round, remember to submit your own questions for the candidates by the link at the bottom of your screen. Questions from this survey will be answered in our third and final round. Again, that is tinyurl.com/viewerquestions2021, which can be found at the bottom of your screen.
We will now move into our second round of questioning. Each candidate will be asked one question pertaining to them specifically. You will have 60 seconds to answer. The order of the questions will remain the same as the past questions.
Mrs. Coleman-Hale, as an educator, are there any policies of our establishment that you would deem unfair or unnecessary to students? If so, how can the board address this?
The policies that I think that are unfair is the policies as far as bullying and harassment in school, as it relates to students, as it relates to educators. That will include support staff, bus driver, all our employees. I think at times that if an individual puts in a concern, it's not followed through, and oftentimes it is ignored. So therefore, that bullying and harassment continues on, and there's nothing resolved. Of course, creating tension and division in the school with your parents, and then ultimately, parents will leave the district. That causes mental issues for students as well. That's not what we need to have. We need to change those policies, include our parents, our students who have been directly affected and indirectly affected, so we can change policies so it can benefit everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman-Hale. Director Buchanan, in your first campaign, you emphasized technology and growth within the district. How did you address this in your previous term, and how in specific do you plan to further these goals if re-elected?
Growth, I think, was the easiest one. We were very fortunate that the voters approved Prop E and Prop S and Prop C, and we've built schools and we've worked through a lot of that process. So I feel like that was very little to do with me. I supported those initiatives, but really that's thanks to the voters and some of the things that we've done at the polls. As far as technology goes, I came in right as we were pushing our one-to-one technology initiative down to the middle schools. And we were continuing to drive it down to the elementary schools. That turned out to be very fortunate at the time. That really helped us when it came down to our hybrid and virtual models for COVID. A lot of the students already had technology they could use at home. So that was very, very fortunate. There were a couple other things, some of our DDoS protection for some of our outages, some of our security issues for some data transfers that I tried to work on. I didn't necessarily do them. There are amazing people in this district that did all those, but just providing that voice and providing some detailed questions and answers to those, I feel helped.
Thank you. Mrs. Thurman, according to the National Survey of Children's Health, 1 in 6 youth experience a mental health disorder every year. What do you think is the best way to support student mental health, and how would you address this issue on the board?
So I'm going to have to apologize. I'm going to have to make sure I understand that question. You're asking me how I think that we can support students' mental health needs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. First of all, I think that we need to have time to get to know our students. I think that we need to be able to listen to their needs. I think that we need to have professionals in on our staff who understand mental health needs, mental health interventions. I think that people need to be learn and to be accepting of our students. And the other thing that I need, rather than focus on what might be a problem, I think we need to have children understand and the community understand that our children are resilient. We need to build on our strengths, and we need to build on resiliency skills and to encourage people to be the best they can be. But again, I go back to the need for staff that can support our students and spend time with them and listen to them.
Thank you, Ms. Thurman. Mr. Goodson, You are running for the board on a position of fiscal responsibility. When it comes to making budget cuts, how in specific will you determine what stays and what goes?
Yeah, I think I kind of answered this a little bit in my previous question, but it really shouldn't be that question. What we should be looking at is our holistic financial picture, right? And what are our priorities? I think I made it very clear in my campaign that our teachers, our staff, our people are our greatest assets. They drive the largest outcome or the best outcome for our students. And so that's where our investments should be. There's ancillary costs around that, the curriculum, the extracurricular things that drive, student results and that support our teachers. And so if I think about how then to drive that best result, it's not a question of what budget cuts should we make. There's certainly times to do that and to look at discretionary spend. And if you do that, you're looking at, what isn't in that priority. But we should be looking at all ways that we can drive better financial results from a top line perspective all the way down the income statement.
Thank you. Mrs. Stoley, with increasing development in district bounds, how do you plan to prepare for future population growth?
Thanks for the question. So I think one of the things that we need to think about as a growing school district is about the relationship with the municipalities that are within our district. I have some relationships with local leaders in Wentzville, and also just not with the municipalities, with districts who have been through this before. So looking to other board members in other districts about how they went through their growing pains. I think gathering that information and seeing what worked for them, what didn't work for them, can be valuable information that will benefit when we are addressing growth in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Sloan, the district has just approved student representation for future board meetings. In what other ways will you stay informed about and advocate for student needs across our district?
I celebrate that. I think that's wonderful that we will have part of the student body as part of those meetings. Like I've said before, I think that you all walk the walk, and we need to hear from that. So listening to the surveys, creating surveys that can be brought to the board so that we can hear that. Hearing your voice, those decisions need to be made on the day-to-day activities that you all are encountering. Experiences that you're encountering, whatever you're seeing, you are our future, and that's where we need to guide our positions.
Thank you. Mr. Looney, over the duration of your campaign, you have emphasized the importance of clarity with your constituents. How do you plan to ensure that the Board of Education is transparent about all planning and decision-making, in addition to making sure students, parents, and staff stay informed?
Okay, well, I think that we would need to draw some clear lines as to what that would look like. I think my biggest vision would be to create some sort of communication system where parents, students, members of the community could get some information through to the board, and it can be a two-way channel because not everything can be hashed out at a board meeting. Not everything should be hashed out publicly. So once we can differentiate between those things, maybe it's some one-on-one sit-downs, maybe it's more events like this above and beyond what we do with, the school board meetings. I think the biggest thing that I would like to see is maybe a change and maybe addressing some of the members who speak to us at board meetings so that we don't, but kind of keep it into a place where it's under control and it doesn't get out of hand. But I just think opening the doors of dialogue and addressing those answers that can be addressed publicly in that manner would be great.
Thank you. We will now be taking a 10-minute break. In this time, the viewer questions will be selected before we move on to our final round.
Welcome back to the 2021 Board of Education Town Hall. We thank you for joining us this evening.
During the break, event organizers sorted through viewer questions and selected 8 questions. These questions will be asked to individual candidates. You will each have 2 minutes to answer.
Our first question comes from the students of the Winsville School District to Ms. Coleman-Hill. As a district, what in specific do you think we could be doing to better support our teachers, and how would you address that in your time on the board?
To better support our teachers, I think our teachers should have a voice. If our teachers do not have a voice on what they are needing in the classroom, the supports that they need for their support staff, specifically children with specific needs, more training, and supplies that they will need in the school district. They also should have their voice, meaning that they should be able to stress how the lack of is affecting their goals for teaching the children in the classroom, because the ultimate goal is to teach our children. If they don't have the resources, supplies, support staff needed to, they cannot be successful. Also, needing more support, such as teacher assistants or paraeducators in the classroom and outside of the classroom. The teacher needs to know if they are unable to be there at the moment, that they have a support staff to carry on what they need to follow through. So allowing the teachers to have a voice so they can be, so they can have the necessary, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little caught up on my words, so they can have the necessary supplies that they need in order to support their students in their classroom. But I was a paraeducator for 10 years for Special School District St. Louis County. And I'm currently a substitute teacher, but I'm not working due to COVID, and also was a substitute teacher in Winsville School District. So I know that there was a lack of, and concerns from teachers that they needed more support when it came to our students with special needs. Sometimes there were more students who were more aggressive and they just did not have the skills necessary to handle that. They wanted to continue the educational flow, not only in their classroom, but also in the other classrooms as well. Not pulling from the help from the other classroom, we need more staffing and pay to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Buchanan, the next question comes from Kelly, a community member. What would you say is your proudest moment as a sitting board member?
My proudest moment. I want to take 1 second real quick, and I want to say a thank you to the publication students here. Mr. Hall, this is an amazing set of students. I appreciate what you guys have done here. This is the coolest and scariest thing I've done in a while, and I appreciate each one of you and all the things you've done today. Wanted to throw that out. I'll be honest, the thing I'm most proudest of in 3 years of being on the board, I have handed out 1 diploma at a graduation. I got to give the diploma to Sully when he graduated from Holt last year. His family doesn't remember my name, doesn't know me, but I promise you, I will never forget that moment in my entire life. Just what he meant to the community and what it meant to be there at that moment. I can't even put it into words, but that's the most special thing I think that I got to do this year. And that includes a lot. I've toured schools, I've met with teachers, so I don't want to make it sound like there's been nothing else. There's been a bunch of amazing moments, but being able to stand there and give him his diploma while everybody at Holt cheered, that was the most special thing I've done on my time at the school board. So.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Ms. Thurman. This question comes from students of the Winsville School District. What are your solutions or thoughts on class sizes reaching above 32 students?
So I don't jump right into this because I think this is a complex question. I think that we often focus on the fact that there are guidelines handed down from DESE. However, I'm going to say that I think that is what it should be considered, is guidelines. I think that If at all possible, we need to consider the makeup of the classroom. I think as far as the student population, the student need, I think we need to consider the subject matter. I think we need to consider the supports that students need who are attending that classroom. I also think that, if I may, I'd like to expand this thought a little bit more and not just focus, because to me, that question is probably focusing on general ed classrooms. I think we need to expand that study, and I think that we need to really look at class size in general, and I think we need to look at special education caseloads. I also think that we need to look at what we ask our counselors to do. I think we need to look at the number of students in a building that we are asking our educational support counselors to support, if you will. I think that it's a complex question. I think that it is not one size fits all. I don't think that if you have a second grade class that we have this number. However, that because there are staffing constraints, sometimes that is what we go by. But I think that we need to look at class size based on student need and the supports in the classroom. And also, again, we're not just talking about a general ed classroom. We need to be talking about sizes of student-teacher ratios throughout the district. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Jason Goodson from Nathan, a graduate at Liberty High School. You keep saying that we need to cut costs and that we need to cut according to priority and to make cuts. However, you haven't stated exactly where you would make these cuts in cost. Where will you make these cuts in cost, and what is it that you consider to be the lowest priority?
Yeah, I think I understand the question and why it would be asked. It is because I don't take a singular view, right? Where is the priority of our spend is the question we first ask, right? Why do we do that? Because if we set those priorities, everything else around that priority is discretionary, should be considered for cuts, and then understand what the impact is by cutting this. If you cut this, this is the impact. If you cut that, this is the impact. It shouldn't be just an exercise of what should be cut. It's once you set those priorities, it should highlight areas that you can. Now, spend comes from all places, right? There's funds that are set up specifically within the district, whether it's the general fund, the teachers fund, the capital fund, the debt service fund. I talk about spend and what's prioritization. It could be out of the capital fund. Now, you could say we can't cross-populate and look at those funds together for general fund and other purposes, but how we prioritize our capital spend when we do repairs and maintenance, when we spend that money, impacts our general fund when we bring those facilities online or those upgrades online. And so we should also be looking at what our capital spend and what our commitments are to do that, because it impacts ultimately our general fund once we bring those facilities and those things online. Setting priorities, reviewing those things that are not against those priorities, challenging our capital spend in a way that is right against what is needed and what is a priority is important. I would look to bring, like I said earlier, revenue to the district. And why do we do that? Why do we think about that? It's how we drive our marketing strategy to drive more students to our classrooms, to our district, because ultimately that improves our financial situation. And so we shouldn't just take a singular, we need to cut costs to meet an objective. We should look at our financial statements as a whole.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goodson. Our next question is for Ms. Stoley. This question comes from Connor, who is a student of the Winsville School District. You have a large social media following. How are you helping to promote acceptance and bridging the gap between all of the people fighting on your pages?
I think that's a really excellent question. I would love to say that I have a solution down and offer it here tonight, but I don't. We have a lot of contention in the district. This kind of started at the beginning of the year. I think that if we learn to communicate to each other in a respectful way, knowing that we come from different perspectives, if we just think about that, that's a start. We also need to remember that the one commonality that we all have is we care about you students. We care about you, and we do want to hear your voices. I was happy that I got this invitation tonight. I think it's the first time that we really have had an opportunity, the public, to hear from the students. And you guys, you took it on your own. You set an example for our district. I couldn't be more proud. So, I mean, that is definitely a big thing to tackle. I think we just need to, again, start out by being respectful and being kind to each other. And I think that's something that we can all work on together. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Mrs. Sloan from Jacob, a parent at Liberty High School. During your last campaign, you promised to donate funds to help underserved community children. Can you confirm how much you donated and if funds were used for anything else after making that commitment?
My donation was for, I believe it was $300 or $325 to Operation Backpack. Any extra costs that I had was just to finish up my thank you letters that I might have spent. Other than that, I did not spend anything else. Community relationship is a big deal for me. Operation Backpack is close to my heart. Feeding our kids is close to my heart. Creating experiences for families that they feel safe, that they have their needs met, those are huge to me. So that's why I think the district, especially some of these legislative matters that are going through, the district does so much more than just education. So for me, if I don't win, I will work towards anything I can do in the community, because I have watched the different churches in Morning Star do amazing things for the families at Christmas time. I have watched Operation Backpack feed our kids. I have my kids make sure that we take stuff in for donations whenever they ask at schools, just to support the teachers and other families within the district. And I think that is an important lesson to teach our kids. It's not just math and reading, but life lessons. So that is something that I just have always held deep to my heart. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sloan. Our final question is for Mr. Looney. This question comes from a student of the Winsville School District. Is there a rule you think that you think should be implemented for the general safety of our students? This can be over any topic.
So a rule for the general safety of our students.
Yes.
So I think that in more ways than one, the way that our district handles safety is satisfactory, according to what I believe. We've had incidents where we've had strange persons on campuses, in buildings. Parents are notified, and we're kept abreast on the situation. Things like this happen. It's kind of hard to be proactive with them, but I think that our reactions to these things need to be swift and concise. I think there needs to be communication as to what happens and how it's affecting each student individually in that campus, because obviously when you hear about these things, parents are concerned. I think I would honestly have to look deeper into the policies that the district has in place now before I could actually make a criticism or say that something needs to change or be affected. There's one thing I would like to address that I really don't care much for, because I know it's done in the name of safety. However, I really think it has an adverse effect on a student. And that's, the use of restraints and isolation rooms and things of that nature. I think that's very detrimental to a child's health and safety when, there are different circumstances that call for different things. But I think we need to look at our approach to things of that nature and figure out a best way to just handle that. That's probably the biggest thing that I don't like that's happening in public schools right now. So like I said, I think we'll have to take a deeper look to give you a more concise or direct answer to that. But I don't think that the Winsville School District is doing a bad job of that currently today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Looney, and thank you all candidates. That concludes our final round of questioning for this evening.
Each candidate will now be given 30 seconds for a closing statement. We will go in the same order established before. Mrs. Coleman-Hale, your time begins now.
Well, I would like to thank you all for the opportunity that we have to be on this platform to share our priorities with you all, and after being elected, to continue to work hard, effortlessly to increase the confidence in the board, etc., to include all of our students, our stakeholders, just to build a better community. We appreciate you all. So I thank you so much, and I look forward, hopefully, to being on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman-Hale. Director Buchanan, you may begin.
We've heard lots of good information tonight, and I appreciate all the candidates for coming out here and sharing. I'm still going to go back to what I shared in my intro. I want to make sure we have board members that are willing to support this district as a whole, from top to bottom, cabinet administrators, all the way down to students. I want to make sure that's what we have in place. I would appreciate your support. Even if you're not going to support me, please get out and vote. Our April turnouts are usually our lowest, and I'd like the community to get out and vote and make your voice heard no matter who you choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Buchanan. Ms. Thurman, you may begin.
I want to say thank you, and I am beyond impressed. I am grateful for your kindness, your patience, and your clarity. And I want to say that when students are given a voice, it is clear that they recognize a problem, they come up with a solution, and they make it happen. I also want to just say that I have been called a champion for children because I have been a fierce advocate for student rights and needs, and I want to assure each of you that I will continue asking difficult questions. I will not accept answers like that's the way it's always been, and I will offer creative options and solutions. So I want to again say thank you for this extraordinary event. You are our hope and you are our future.
Thank you, Mrs. Thurman. Mr. Goodson, you may begin.
Look, I echo the same things. I think this thing has been awesome. I appreciate the students that have put this on. I think allowing yourself to have a voice is incredibly important. I think that's been my favorite part of the campaign process this far is giving a chance to talk to the community. I find those interactions refreshing, a chance to learn things that I didn't know, wasn't aware of, etc. You know, if elected, that's what I'd like to continue, to have a voice for the community, for everyone, not just one group or one person, but everyone. I think I've demonstrated what a collaborative mindset looks like, places where we need empathy, and where we need to challenge our past thinking. And I'm looking forward to April, and hopefully everybody comes out and, to Brad's point, gets out and votes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goodson. Ms. Stoley, you may begin.
Thank you. I'm just very thankful for the opportunity. I think it's awesome that you guys have, let your voices be heard in a productive, intentional, and collaborative way that you could be heard by the community. I think it's, just been an all-around great experience. I welcome future events like this for the new Board of Education, our administration. I think we need to keep these kind of dialogues going. It's so important for the success of all students that you guys are part of this. And again, I encourage everyone to please vote April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoley. Mrs. Sloan, you may begin.
Thank you. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think this is incredible. Also, I just hope, if elected, that I can bring some compassion, a sense of teamwork to the board, a bridge to the gap, just working with the community, working for our students, keeping that as our focus, working to make sure our staff, teachers, feel supported across the board, as far as administration to cafeteria workers to everybody, and the parents. Just working towards collaboration and communication and keeping a teamwork mindset going.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sloan. Mr. Looney, you may begin.
All right. So I want to start by saying, to all the students and athletes, keep going. You're doing a great job, and you're going to make it, okay? Teachers and support staff, I've always supported you, and I'll continue to do so. And to all the voters, make sure you get out and vote April 6th. Thank you for your time. You guys have done amazing. That's all I got.
Thank you.
That concludes tonight's town hall meeting. We would like to thank our candidates for their time and our viewers at home for joining us tonight. And a special thanks to the student volunteers who helped make this event possible.
Please remember to go vote on April 6th. If you are not registered to vote, you can do so at vote.gov. However, the deadline to register to vote for the upcoming election has passed. Each candidate's bios and email addresses can be found on the WSD website under About Our District in the Board of Education page.
To all candidates, we wish you the best of luck in the upcoming election. Thank you for joining us, and good